my name is Lenny, and my topic will be on global climate change. There is a time where human workers or human labor is mostly done by hand. However, in the mid-1850s, the Industrial Revolution taking place, and that replaces human labor with machines. These machines are fueled with wood, coal, gas, or any other biofuel. These machines, as they are being fueled and powered, they emit a gas called carbon dioxide, or also known as CO2. CO2 is a greenhouse gas, and as it's become more accumulated over time, it's becoming increased at dangerously high levels. Because of this, the global temperature is changing, and this is where global climate change is. I'm going to argue that because of the increasing amounts of CO2, it is too late to change the effects of global climate change. And here are the reasons why. The global CO2 concentration is rising up to 450 parts per million. To failure to reach global accord on these rising carbon dioxide levels, and there's difficult to react to the consequences of these increased greenhouse gases. Back to my first supporting claim. Global CO2 concentration is rising to a dangerous level of 450 parts per million. What is parts per million? Parts per million is a unit similar to percent, except it's per million. So 450 over a million doesn't seem so bad. But this is CO2. CO2 is a very impactful gas that traps a lot of heat from the sun. And this causes a greenhouse effect. Right now, the current carbon dioxide concentration is 400 parts per million. This has been recorded in February 2015 by the Scripps Institute of Oceanography in UC San Diego. Every year, CO2 concentration increases by 2 parts per million. At 450 parts per million, the global temperature increases by 2 degrees Celsius. Right now, global temperature is increased 1 degree Celsius above the pre-industrial industrial era. Why is it? It doesn't seem so bad at first, like it's just 1 degree Celsius, but that's enough temperature to change some of the ice to melt. At 0 degrees Celsius, just 1 degree Celsius can melt the ice. So, to try to fix this, climate scientists, NASA, Dr. James Hansen says that we need to reach back to 350 parts per million. But that's but the IPCC, or the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, wants to stabilize at 450. They want to stabilize at 450 because it's almost very unlikely to stabilize at 350 parts per million. So as the CO2 concentration rises, it is becoming very dire to even change back to 300, back to lower levels. So on to my second supporting claim. We're trying to fix this, but it's a mess with on these treaties. The main treaty is Kyoto Protocol Treaty, where we're trying to reduce the global emission of CO2 of all developing countries, but only a handful of countries achieve to reduce some of the emission. And some of the developing countries, like the poor countries, don't want to cap emissions because they think that using machines and machinery will make them much a richer country, while developed countries like China I think it's useless to not even include all the developed countries. Not only that, but USA is not even a part of the treaty, the only country that's not part of the treaty. So we are not cooperating to fix the rising CO2 levels, and it's becoming limited time. And on my last point claim is, since these increased greenhouse gases, it is difficult to react to the consequences of these effects. Glaciers and ice are obviously melting, but as soon as these ices and permafrost melts, methane gases rises, and methane gas is also a greenhouse gas. That also increases the concentration of greenhouse gas in our atmosphere, and this also includes more global warming. And in our Arctic study of another oceanology source, some of the oceans are absorbing the carbon dioxide levels, which kills marine life, and we can't really have a marine ecosystem as well. And some of these storms, droughts are also all causes of extreme climate changes, are all part of the effects of increased global concentration of CO2. That is my plan. Thank you.
All right, the proposition's clearly identified. There is a preview, but you don't use numerical signposts on that. It just sounds like a description. It's not until you start your speech that I suddenly realize, oh, that was the preview that's going on. So you need to be a little bit more explicit about that. You did cite the supporting points organizationally during the presentation, so that helped a little bit. Although your first point is not really a claim, it's a piece of data. What's the inference that you want us to draw from that? That's what the claim ought to be. Transitions between the supporting points were clear, so there wasn't any problem structurally in the body of the speech. I thought that that helped pretty well. The data that you cite, look, there are a lot of presuppositions that are built into the argument before you even get to the proposition that global warming is real, that it's affected by human activity and fossil fuels, that we are on, that the models are accurate, all those kinds of things. I think you could kind of just take those as a given and run with it from there. The first point that says, your first point really is that we're kind of at a point where the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere is substantial enough to produce effects, and then there's this kind of prediction that says that it's going to go up to an amount that's definitely going to have a significant effect on the climate. So some of that data sounds like it comes from Scripps. Some of it, I'm not sure where it comes from. I don't know if it's modeled after stuff that's identified in the IPCC, or if there's a particular research that you're dealing with, and we don't really get a time frame on this, so I think that that's a little bit problematic. Some of the argument about global warming that goes on here is about the models and their accuracy, so that doesn't seem to be the area of controversy. You pretty much take it, your argument is that if we go to this level, we will have these particular harms. That's the inference that you're making. That Hansen wants to go back to 350 parts per million is interesting. What prevents us from doing that? I think you've got an interesting explanation about that, and that is that there's a lack of cooperation for doing that. it requires, your argument needs to say it requires political willpower to control CO2 atmosphere in the atmosphere, and there is no political willpower to accomplish that. How do we know that? Well, the U.S. won't sign the Kyoto Treaty. China won't follow the treaty that they've signed until everybody does it, and undeveloped nations are unwilling to do so because they believe that is the path to economic security. All of which I think are good points, but they need to be expressed a little bit more clearly. And you also need to give us a source citation on all of that information, which I don't doubt. I mean, I know the U.S. is not compliant with Kyoto. I don't know what China's position on this, and it's an assertion that all of the underdeveloped countries don't give a damn because they're only interested in economic development. So if you're saying that that's true, give us a reason to believe that that's true. I'm not sure why other countries, however, whatever their level of development, would be dispassionate about the influence of CO2 on global climate, especially if it's as drastic as you're talking about. Then you kind of get sidetracked onto some other issues concerning the ocean and methane and that sort of stuff. And again, I don't hear any source citations on that information. It all is kind of an assumption. Your pacing's a little bit inconsistent, but the organizational structure is clear. I do think your claims could be sharper, though, and that would help the argument quite a bit. All right, thank you.